The night was dark and the moonlight fell on the sky, spreading silver beams across the silent jungle. The air was thick and heavy with mystery. Insects screamed and branches shook with the wind. In the distance stood an abandoned mansion, its broken walls echoing with forgotten voices. And inside, a young explorer named David stepped carefully with a torch in his hand. Adventure had always been his passion, and this time fate had brought him an old book hidden in a forgotten library. The book was filled with strange drawings, ancient symbols, and on one of the fragile pages a map was drawn that pointed deep into the jungle to a lost temple where a treasure of unimaginable value was hidden. David's eyes sparkled with excitement, his heartbeat grew louder, and he studied every line of the map carefully. Each symbol looked like a riddle waiting to be solved, and as he closed the book he made a decision. Tomorrow he would begin his dangerous journey. At sunrise, David packed his backpack. He put inside a compass, a sharp knife, a torch, ropes, and some dry food. He jumped into his jeep and drove straight toward the jungle. For hours the road was nothing but rough stones, broken paths, and towering trees. The wind whistled around him as if warning him to turn back, but his determination only grew stronger. At last he reached the massive stone gate of the jungle. Leaving his jeep behind, he stepped forward. The gate was covered in strange carvings, symbols from an ancient civilization that seemed to whisper forgotten stories. David pulled out the map and compared the carvings. Every single detail matched. He took a deep breath and entered the jungle. Inside the jungle, the atmosphere was even more terrifying. Insects screamed from every corner, leaves crackled under his boots, and the cries of unseen animals echoed through the forest. Yet David pushed forward, guided by the thrill of discovery. After walking for hours, he set up camp. He lit a small fire, and under the pale light of dawn he studied the map again. It spoke of a stone puzzle that revealed the next path. When solved, David stayed awake half the night, deciphering the strange symbols, and as morning came, he picked up his torch, tightened his boots, and set forward again. After hours of walking, he finally stood before a huge boulder carved with mysterious circles and numbers. The puzzle was waiting. The puzzle consisted of rotating stones that had to be aligned into a secret combination. David remembered the clues hidden in the drawings of his map. After much effort, he turned the stones into the right positions. Suddenly, the massive boulder trembled and slowly rolled aside, revealing a hidden underground tunnel. David's heart raced with excitement. He lit his torch and stepped inside. The tunnel was filled with stale air. The walls seemed to whisper with strange sounds, and the darkness was so deep that even the beam of his torch barely cut through. After a few minutes of walking, he entered a wide hall, and suddenly from both sides arrows shot through the air. David dropped low, rolled across the floor, and narrowly escaped the deadly trap. His breathing was heavy, but his determination was stronger. At the end of the hall, a wooden bridge appeared, stretched across a dark pit filled with sharp spikes. The bridge looked weak and unstable. Every step could be his last. David took one careful step, then another, his arms outstretched for balance. The wood creaked under his weight, but slowly he crossed to the other side, his heart still pounding. Beyond the bridge stood a chamber with tall stone guardians lined against the walls. As soon as he entered, the guardians came alive, their eyes glowing red and their stone arms moving with deadly precision. David pulled out his knife. The battle was brutal. The guardians struck with immense strength, but David relied on his agility, dodging their strikes and aiming at their weak points. Finally, after a fierce struggle, the guardians collapsed and the chamber fell silent. In the center of the chamber was a pedestal glowing faintly. Upon it rested a golden orb shining with an otherworldly light. David approached carefully. He placed his hand on the orb and lifted it. Instantly the ground shook, the walls cracked, and the entire chamber began to collapse. Boulders rained from above, and the ceiling started to fall. David sprinted with every ounce of his strength, and at the last second he leapt through the exit, gasping for breath. Outside there, storm clouds gathered and thunder rolled across the sky. Rain began to pour down, soaking the jungle in an ominous darkness. Ahead of him stood another massive stone gate, larger than the first, its carvings covered with ancient patterns. David realized the golden orb was the key. He placed it into a circular slot, and the gate rumbled open. Inside lay a hall larger than anything he had seen, walls covered with carvings telling stories of a forgotten empire. In the center stretched a deadly puzzle. The floor was filled with pressure plates, each one deadly and releasing spikes if stepped on incorrectly. David pulled out his map, studied the hidden path, and carefully placed one foot after another. The tension grew. Every step his breath slowed, his focus sharpened. Finally, after endless moments, he reached the safe zone. Alive in front of him, a massive treasure room revealed itself, filled with mountains of gold coins, glittering jewelry, antique weapons, and statues of long-forgotten kings. David's eyes widened but among the treasure he noticed something more important. On a pedestal lay a scroll sealed with wax. He unrolled the scroll and read its faded words. This was only a test. The real treasure was still hidden deeper within the jungle, and only a worthy explorer could find it. David smiled faintly, though fear stirred within him. He placed the scroll inside his backpack along with a few golden artifacts, and left the chamber. Outside, the jungle still roared with storms, but his spirit burned brighter. For hours he wandered through the jungle, his boots sinking into the wet soil. His map pointed toward a river said to lead to the next secret. At last he reached its rushing waters, where ancient stone statues stood on the banks, each holding arrows in their stone hands pointing in the same direction. David realized they formed a pattern. They were guiding him. He dived into the river, and beneath the surface discovered a hidden cave entrance. Without hesitation he swam. Inside the cave was silent, cold, and filled with moss-covered walls. It was a labyrinth, twisting and turning at every corner. Puzzles awaited, rotating walls, collapsing floors, swinging blades, each more dangerous than the last. David's mind and reflexes were tested at their limits, but his determination never wavered. Step by step he beat every challenge until he finally reached the end of the maze. There in a massive chamber stood a giant statue holding a golden key. As David approached, the statue's eyes blazed with light, and it began to move. An intense battle followed. David fought with all his strength, dodging every crushing blow until at last he managed to topple the stone figure, retrieving the golden key. With the key in hand, he turned to the final clue marked on the map. Beneath the roots of the oldest tree in the jungle, the true treasure lay hidden. After hours of searching, he found it, a tree so vast its branches touched the sky. Beneath its roots was a stone plate. David inserted the key into the slot. The ground trembled and opened, revealing a staircase spiraling downward. He descended carefully and entered a hidden golden chamber. The chamber shone with light. Treasures of unimaginable worth surrounded him, crowns of kings, ancient artifacts, golden statues, but in the center was something more precious, a crystal box glowing with a mysterious power. David reached for it, and as he lifted the box, brilliant light filled the chamber. His hands shook with awe. He secured the box in his backpack, but the chamber began to collapse. The tree above shook violently. The jungle itself seemed to resist revealing its secrets. David sprinted upward through the staircase and emerged on the surface as the ground sealed itself behind him. Exhausted but victorious, David sat at the edge of the jungle, rain still falling around him, his chest rising and falling with each breath, yet a smile spread across his face. He realized that the true treasure was not just gold or jewels, it was his courage, his intelligence, and the adventure that burned inside him. Still, the scroll had warned the journey was not over. The jungle held deeper mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and in the shadows unseen eyes were watching his every step, preparing their next challenge.